Hello. Guess what? For those of you who have seen my post in the community tab, you might be asking yourself, why am I using the community tab now? The simple answer to that is, I don't want to come across as thicker than I already look, but I didn't know how to use it, so I never used it. Now I've worked it out, I'll be posting lots of shit there, all kinds of edgy stuff, I don't know. I'll just put any updates, any live streams, anything that comes up will be going in the community tab. Right, now we've got that out of the way. Here's the thing, I've got this engine that you know, that's out of the car, Mondeo Mk5 2-litre diesel. Now it's out of the car, I can show things on it so much easier. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the Cambelt today. Now I've already done a Cambelt video in the car. And believe me, when I tried to film that was a struggle. I almost gave up. Now it's going to be a piece of piss because it's out of the car. I can just move the camera anywhere I like. So it's going to be great. But also the most important thing is when I made that first video, which is by the way is here. Yeah, when I made that first video, I didn't know where the timing pinhole was for the crankshaft. And even looking on the Ford Etis system, the picture they showed wasn't clear. Because anyone who has had any experience on a 2-litre diesel Mark IV Mondeo, you'll know where the timing pinhole is just below the starter motor. And this particular engine has the same hole there, but it's got like a little plastic plug in it. And as I found out, it's got a plug in it because you're not supposed to touch it. You don't go there. You can't put a pin in there because there's nothing to go into. I've now found the pin which I actually put a video to. I'm not even going to go there. But anyway, this video I'm going to change the cam belt and I'm going to clearly show where the crankshaft pinhole is in the block. So everybody will know. So anyone who wants to do this and wants to pin it up properly, rather than use a paint mark, because I was using paint marks on the flywheel against the gearbox casing, which worked fine. It wasn't a problem, but if you ever come to the point where you actually lose the timing, say your belt was to break, then you really have got to find that hole to pin it up properly. That's what we're going to do in this video today. Right then, that's that out the way. Before I start this video, let me just say hello to the office staff because I believe Monica is going home early. She's got other things to do. So I better get the office bit out of the way quickly. The only trouble is, every time I walk in here, I've got to keep adjusting the exposure because it's really bright in the office and the garage is like dark where us mushrooms live. Hey Mary, I see you're back off holiday.
Yep.
Guess what?
Unfortunately. What?
One of these I can't even say it. I've got a lisp. One of these
subscribers.
That's it, subscribers has offered to fix your PC.
Has he?
For free.
What, for free?
I don't know. They didn't say. They didn't put a price on it.
They said for free of charge.
But
Well, actually, I don't know where the cover's gone.
But I do remember there was someone left a comment a while back. It was almost as if he lost his shit over seeing that.
Where's air conditioning?
I put it down to the fact you just like to play around with it and tinker with it.
Well, what can I say?
But if you want it fixing, you have got a PC technician who's willing to do it for you.
Oh, right, okay.
Good morning, Mrs. Monica.
Morning.
Oh my God. What's for breakfast?
Porridge, strawberries,
I'll tell
and
you what.
blueberries.
Sorry? Porridge?
Yeah.
I don't eat like that. That looks like healthy eating.
Well, it is, believe it or not.
So you're off early this morning, are you?
Yeah.
That's why I'm in here, just saying hello quickly.
Okay.
We love the headband.
Do we?
Now, as you didn't know where your last piece of clothing come from, where did the headband come from?
Oh, Claire's.
Claire's Accessories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll shop there all the time myself. Anyway, nice to see you.
Yeah.
Have a nice
Same.
day.
And you too. Don't work too hard.
Oh, no chance of that. The only person who actually works hard in this place is sitting right in front of me.
Hey.
Mary, take a break for God's sake.
I've only been here 15, 20 minutes.
Monica, you're on your 4th tea break already. Anyway, see ya.
See you.
See you later, Mary.
See you later.
Okay, that's the office scene done. See, look, it's dark in here now. Now I've got to adjust the exposure again. There, right. Let's get on with this flipping Cambelt, otherwise we'll be here all day. If you've already watched the video that I left a link here to earlier, you'll see that you've got to take the driver's wheel off. Well, you've got to jack the car up, the front of the car, put it on axle stands, you've got to take the driver's wheel off. You're going to have to remove the driver's front inner wheel arch liner. That'll give you access to your lower Cambelt cover and crankshaft pulley. Also, this plate that goes on top of your fuel filter is held on by 3 8mm screws. That's going to need to come off. There'll be a wiring loom, which I haven't got here, which will come round from the fuel filter and it will connect onto a bracket on your engine mount. That needs to be disconnected. Your actual engine mount, you'll need to put a stand underneath your sump, preferably with a foam pad, so you don't crack it because it's only a plastic sump. Then you've got 3 like 18mm nuts and 2 15mm bolts which hold your engine mount on. And in the video I showed earlier, you can see how this mount comes off. If you keep this engine like level, you can actually lift the mount off and you can twist it like that and it will come out. But like I say, the link I left earlier on in this video, I actually show how that mount comes off. The wiring loom that runs down the back of the top cover, you'll have to unclip that with a trim tool. It's like in 2 places it's clipped in. Then there's 3 10mm bolts holding this top cover on. And that will just literally slide out forward and then you push it out this way. The object now is we've got to pin up this hole here in the cylinder head with this big hole on the camshaft sprocket. Don't worry about the little one, that's for the timing pump, so we ain't got to touch that one. 22mm socket on your crankshaft pulley bolt and turn the engine over clockwise. I'm going to stop just before the 2 holes fully align. Now I use just an 8mm threaded bolt for the camshaft sprocket, and to go into the flywheel I use this bent piece of bonnet rod. If you don't have something like this, I'll show you what else you can use. Right, this is where it gets interesting. Your starter motor sits just here and you can't really see the timing hole. This hole here that I've just put this bar in, there'll be like a little plastic plug in there and you can't remove that plug unless you remove the starter motor. On the Mark IV Mondeos, this is where the timing hole was in the block and that's where you would time it up. But on these engines that's not the case. So if I move down a little bit, there's our timing hole, nicely hidden. And you can see the little tab in the flywheel there that's going to line up with that hole, and that's what we're going to lock. So I'm going to put my bar in there. I'm going to continue to turn the engine over clockwise, and when that tab on the flywheel lines up with that hole, our bar should lock in. That's it, that's gone in. And there, you can see where the bar's gone through the block and into the flywheel tab. That's the flywheel now locked. I've heard people say, can I use the flywheel locking pin to lock the engine so I can undo the crankshaft pulley bolt? I would say no. I wouldn't consider the pin to be strong enough and there's a high chance you could bend it. Me, I just use an air gun, a compressed air gun, or use a powerful battery gun to undo your crankshaft pulley bolt. We'll come to that bit in a minute. So if you don't have the piece of bent bonnet rod that I have to lock this flywheel, you can pull that out and you can use an 8mm drill bit and just push that in and it'll be a perfect fit. So to pin your camshaft sprocket, you can use another 8mm drill bit if you like, or you can use an 8mm bolt and that will just pop straight in. And by the way, if it's lined up properly to start with, the bolt to pin this sprocket up should just slide straight through, in and out, no problem. If this bolt wasn't to fit in here properly, we can come to that later, so it's not a big issue. So the crankshaft pulley bolt, 22mm. Here's the problem, I've explained this in my previous video. The threads on this bolt are covered in Loctite, and the Loctite is like concrete. So what will probably happen is if you try to remove this bolt with an air gun or a battery gun, it will probably come out a little bit and then it will start getting really, really slow undoing, and you could either snap the bolt or damage the threads because there's just too much goddamn Loctite on this bolt. So the best policy all round here is to get yourself a hot air gun, Black & Decker, whatever make. This is called a Titan. It was one of the cheap ones. I'll switch it on. I'm going to heat this bolt, okay, for either 4 to 5 minutes. And I'm going to keep this hot air gun probably 1 to 2 inches away from the bolt. What that's done has softened the thread lock on the bolt threads. So now we should be able to undo this bolt nice and easily. There. Careful you don't touch the bolt because it's blooming hot. I'm going to let this bolt cool down now, and when it's cool enough I'm going to put it on the wire wheel and I'm going to clean all this old Loctite so it's a clean thread again. That bolt hole, we want to clean out all the crap that's in there, so I'll just use an air iron. The pulley's probably quite hot still, so I'm going to use a piece of rag to hold it, and you can just wriggle that off. And there is a little keyway on the back of this pulley which will slot onto a keyway on your crankshaft. The wiring loom is now clipped into the bottom cover from behind the cover, so we'll unclip that. Your crankshaft position sensor is held on by one 8mm screw. You actually haven't got to take this off, but I just find it easier to remove it so it's out of the way, especially when you're draining the water. If you don't want to get it covered in water. So I'll take that screw out, then that should just wriggle off and you can just put it somewhere out of the way. Okay, this lower cover, there's 3 10mm bolts that you've got to take out. I'll get that last one out of the way. When you remove this cover, you've got this disc here. This disc is quite important because this is what your crankshaft sensor gets its pickup from. So you don't want to drop it and damage it. It's got like a little magnetic ring on it. So you've got to be careful as you pull this forward. Yeah, get that ring and just take that out carefully. Try not to damage this outer edge. And then that cover will just literally come off, and it will come off from underneath the car, if you know what I mean. You'll notice our crankshaft sprocket is like, there's a woodruff key and it's right in the middle of the slot there. That's how we want it to have it. This actual engine, this belt that's on here now, was timed up correctly. So when we put our new belt on, we really do need that woodruff key to be in the middle of this sprocket again, just like this one. 13mm spanner on your tensioner nut, and we'll undo that nut. And you'll notice the tensioner's already detensioned itself. We pull that round like that, clockwise, and now the belt's all loose. I find it easier if you remove the belt from the bottom crankshaft sprocket first. It just tends to slide off really easily. And then you can just lift the belt completely off the rest of the pulleys. Now at the base of this water pump, there's a little like Allen key, like a 6mm. So you can put that there, and you can undo this because we've got to drain the cooling system. We need to change the water pump at the same time we change the Cambelt. This is a nice easy way of draining the coolant on these cars when you change the Cambelt without making a mess. So I'll undo that, and from underneath the wheel arch of the car, you'd get a funnel with a pipe on it going into a bucket. Then when you undo that, you can actually drain the water straight into your funnel, there, and that will go into a bucket. And that saves making a mess. And you'll now have 7 11mm bolts holding this water pump on. The new water pumps, I'll show you one in a minute, they do come with a new metal gasket which crushes up. One water pump. Now I'm just going to show this water pump quickly because there's not a heck of a lot to see here. I don't think much to these, they tend to fail. I never had them failing on the Mark IV Mondeos, and these bloody water pumps, they're well expensive, they're like £170 or something stupid like that. They come with a metal crush gasket on them, which is actually fixed on through some tabs. So anyway, that's actually our little Allen screw where we can drain it, but we ain't got to touch it on the new one. We can just bolt this pump straight on, and that's it. It'll crush this gasket up, and that's it. But I would say, when you bolt the pump on, do the bolts up evenly all round and go over them about, like probably 3 times, just to make sure they're all nipped up the same amount. 16mm bolt head here. We'll undo that, and this holds your rider pulley, which is sat inside your engine bracket. So you need to put your hand underneath so you don't drop it. Undo that bolt all the way, and the bolt will actually come out with the pulley. It'll just, or the whole thing will slide out the bottom, like that. Your tensioner pulley, you just take the nut off. You'll note how it goes on, there's like a little pin there that it slots onto, so you can't get it wrong. Your crankshaft sprocket, obviously blow some air over here if there's any crap on it, but you see it moves around on the woodruff key. That's to take up for the play in the Cambelt when we put the new belt on, so we can adjust it properly. It's actually quite a good idea, but what you need to do, you need to put this sprocket, butt it up against the right hand side like that. The reason being, when we start to adjust the Cambelt up, it will pull this sprocket around to the clockwise like that, and hopefully we'll end up somewhere in the middle. But anyway, for now, we'll keep that sprocket butted right up against the right hand side of that woodruff key. One Cambelt kit. So in this kit, you actually don't get much. If this was a kit for a Mark IV Mondeo, you'd get all the bolts and everything, but you don't in these, you get absolutely nothing. You get your idler pulley, you get your tensioner. Notice there's a little pin here. That pin, I'll show you what we do with that when we put it back on. And you get your belt. I'm just going to show you something on this belt. 1 minute. There's no marks on this timing belt that you've got to line up anywhere, okay? But what I tend to do, I don't know if it makes any difference, I doubt if it does, but the writing on this belt, I will put it so it's like, I'll put the belt on the car, on the pulleys, so the writing is actually facing me. That's just my habit. I wouldn't put it with the right, I don't know, it's just a thing I do. But I'm going to pack all this away because this is a brand new belt and that's a dud engine. So I should be putting the old belt back on just to show, and this can go back up in our stores. So we'll put the bolt through our idler pulley, then slide our pulley and the bolt up through the back of this bracket, and then we can just screw that bolt straight into the block. That's it. And then just tighten it up, 16mm, nice and tight. Then that should spin and there should be no play in that at all. So we'll slide our tensioner onto the stud, but notice the little dowel there, that's going to go through this slot. So straight in there like that. Then put your nut on. Do not tighten the nut, just leave it loose. This camshaft sprocket, let's just assume that initially this wasn't lined up and you'd pinned your crankshaft up, but the pin wouldn't fit through here. So we'll say it's off a little bit, won't go in. 16mm spanner on our sprocket, and we'll turn that until the pin does go in. And what you do is you can just wriggle it a little bit until you get it centralised, so your pin slides in nice and easily. And double check your crankshaft sprocket is butted up against the right hand side of the woodruff key. Hold on 1 minute. You know when you're trying to do something, you get dragged off to do something else? One of the dodgy drivers has managed to break their goddamn windscreen. Yeah! Let's put this where it belongs. Yeah. Yeah! Ooh. God, that feels good. Hey. Hey. Taxi. Taxi. Look at this. Look at this. Call 911. Charlie, it's a bit early for Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where's your Santa outfit?
Yeah.
Jesus, what's the world coming to?
Yeah, what is it coming to?
So anyway, you've been driving a taxi all this time for the last 60 years. What you got to say for yourself? You're on camera. Keep it clean. Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay, let's go and check out your wheels, shall we? Look at this. This is a Ford Transit Pro Cab. Look at that, Pro Cab. All done up by Cab Direct. Hold on a minute. We ought to actually do a video on one of these. Look at them funky yellow seats. Nice. And I'll tell you what, it's got a nice Perspex partition there, and you actually put your money through the little hole. It's alright, Andy, mate. You can get on with your work if you want. I quite like them Transits. They're probably going to be a whole heap of trouble, but they do look nice. Anyway, I must get in. I'd love to stand and talk to you all day, Charlie. Come back at Christmas time. Now, I'm sorry I keep getting disturbed. Flipping drivers keep pulling in the bloody yard. You've got to say hello to them, haven't you? You've got to show a little bit of solidarity with them. Anyway, right, let's get on with this Cambelt. Right, let's stick another shrimp on the barbie. No, actually, let's fit this belt. Flipping heck, let's get this done. I would start putting the belt on the camshaft sprocket to start with, wrap it around there, and then wrap it around your idler pulley and your tensioner pulley, like that. Feed it onto your water pump, just hold it there so it don't come off again, and then you start off on the right hand side of the crank sprocket. The sprocket might turn a little bit, so it can, that's the whole point of it, it'll move a little bit so the belt will slot onto it, and that should slide straight on. Note the position of our tensioner there, and our nut is still loose. This little pin here, just pull it out now. That's put a bit of tension on the belt, but now we'll set this adjuster up. So we need to get the tensioner pointer in between the two slots on the back plate of the tensioner here. So using a 6mm Allen key, we'll put that in the hole there, and we'll turn this tensioner, you turn it anti-clockwise, just remember that. And we'll keep turning that until the pointer Actually, let me just move this around a bit so I can see better. Keep turning it anti-clockwise until the pointer goes in between them two slots, or gets into that groove. There. When it's there, we can now tighten our nut up, tighten that 13mm nut up, nice and tight. Then just double check our pointer is dead in the middle of that groove. Notice our woodruff key is actually loose in the centre of our crank sprocket, just where we want it to be. That keyway does not want to be touching either side of this, or there could be a problem. But in the middle, where it's loose still, that's perfect. You slot your lower cover on from underneath the wheel arch and pop that in place. We'll get all three of these bolts in. I'd screw them all in like finger tight, but don't tighten any of these 310mm yet. You can now refit your crankshaft position sensor. 1/8mm, and we'll screw that in and tighten that up. Then clip the wiring back into the rear of the lower cover. Refit your crankshaft sensor pickup disc. That will slot over the woodruff key. Your crankshaft pulley, you get the slot at the top, 12 o'clock, and that's going to fit on a woodruff key. So we'll slide that on. You'll notice that once this pulley's on, there's a bit of slop left to right. If you just sort of like jiggle it about so you get it in the middle. I'm now going to clean all the old Loctite off this thread. Right, I've got a bit of thread lock in a bottle, if there's any left in here, yeah. Now I can put some thread lock on our threads, and I'll refit our crankshaft bolt and washer, and I'll screw it in like finger tight, half a dozen threads. At this moment in time, I've still got the camshaft sprocket pin in the hole and the crankshaft flywheel locking pin still located. All I do now is whack this bolt up nice and tight. I hold the pulley so it's central and just whack it up. Bingo. You can remove your camshaft sprocket pin now and remove the pin from your block. Now all we need to do, put our socket and bar back on our crank pulley bolt, and we want to turn the engine over 2 full revolutions until the actual timing pin on the camshaft sprocket lines up again, the holes line up again. So I'll get this engine spun over 2 full revolutions. This actual engine, because it's seized up, it's hard to flipping turn. And once again, just before our 2 holes are fully aligned up, we're going to stop, and then like you'd have to get your hand from underneath, and there's like a little ridge bit here you can see, so you can kind of guide where the pin's got to go. So we'll put our drill bit in there, and we'll carry on turning it over clockwise until our drill bit dogs in. That's it, we're in. Now our crank's pinned up. If everything is good, our pin should go in this camshaft sprocket perfectly, straight in, perfect. And it doesn't go in tight, it goes in really loose fit. So that is absolutely perfectly timed up. Notice our tensioner pointer is still lined up perfectly in the middle of the slot. Now as everything's fine, we can now remove this camshaft timing pin for the last time and remove the pin from our flywheel. If this tensioner pointer wasn't quite right, you could just loosen the 13mm and adjust this either way to loosen or tighten it, not a problem. But if for any reason, when you've spun this over 2 revolutions, you put the pin back into the crankshaft, into the flywheel, and the camshaft sprocket doesn't line up again, you really need to start the procedure all over again. You would literally have to loosen the crankshaft bolt and actually take the crankshaft pulley off. Make sure the crank is pinned up properly, loosen the cam belt, and then move the top cam sprocket of a 16mm spanner so it does all fit again, and then go through the whole timing up procedure again. If you do it right the first time, and I've changed a lot of these belts, generally speaking, nearly every single time, I can pretty much guarantee they'll be timed up perfectly if you follow these instructions. You can now pop your top cover back on and put your 3 10mm screws back in. Remember I said earlier, do not tighten up the actual 3 10mm bolts on this bottom cover. That's because there's a bit of wiggle room in it, and when you put the top cover on, if you tighten these ones up, there's a chances are this back one won't go in. So now, because they're all loose still, now this will line up. You can wiggle it about to it actually lines up. Now you get all your 10mm in on both covers, you can tighten them all up. You'll probably need to use a 10mm spanner with a ring head to tighten this one, the right hand side of the actual crankshaft sprocket. There. Don't forget to clip your wiring back into your cover, and then just put back on your auxiliary drive belt or alternator belt, refit your engine mounting, connect the wiring back up, just put everything back together, all the ancillaries, and you're good to go. That should start up and run perfectly fine. Right, that's it. I'm going to cut the video now. Just a final note. If this cam belt timing, and I can pretty much guarantee this, if it's not set almost perfect, if it's a little bit out, your engine management light will no doubt be illuminated, and you'll have a timing related fault code logged in your engine ECU. So it really is quite important to make sure that this cam belt timing is pretty much perfectly timed up. But it's quite an easy job. Once you've done a few, you can like whiz through them well fast. Believe me, I know. Anyway, that's it. I'm out of here. So till the next time, guys. See ya.